Welcome back to my channel, all my haunted followers, and thank you all who are continually subscribing, even though I don't get to post as much as I want to. Guys, it took me a while to come up with what I want to do for these stories, and of course, I picked monsters, cryptos, whatever you want to call them. These 5 stories may change your mind as if they exist or not. So, sit back and prepare to get scared. Remember those silly tales about Slenderman? How it was eventually figured out that it was nothing more than a made up story. What if? What if those things that were supposed to be made up were real? And these urban legends are based off a true story? Well, I'm here to tell you about something that took place many years ago. Something that most won't believe, and those that do have had encounters with them themselves. It was Halloween, and I was babysitting our next door neighbor. We were handing out candy. The night was actually fun. We had about 40 kids or so, which is a lot for a small neighborhood. Around 9 or so, I put the little guy down. I pulled out my laptop to start to study. I was a little obsessed with this whole Slenderman legend at the time. I was doing an essay on the so-called Slenderman killings. For those who don't know, it was about 2 girls who were told by Slenderman to go kill her friend. She survived. But of course, the story enters the subreddits, and then was created from there. Slenderman was nothing more than some made-up subreddit story that someone created, or so I thought. The scary thing about the whole thing was how so many over the years have claimed to see this creature, and things just like it. And for those who don't know, the creator was inspired by some creature, so maybe the story had some weight to it. Most spooky stories do, and supposedly bringing attention to him and calling upon him, he'll show up. I really didn't believe any of it. I was not into the paranormal, ghosts, werewolves, vampires. They were all just made up stories to me. I guess maybe a part of me wanted them to be real. It was around 10 at that point. I figured, hey, it's Halloween. What's the best time to call upon him? I just laughed about it. I walked outside to the back porch. The night was cold, but very clear. The woods surrounding the house were deep, and you could barely make any detail out from the small light. I stood there, and I said, I call upon you, Slenderman. I ask you to come. I will do whatever you please. Supposedly, that's how you get his attention, by doing his bidding. He'll do yours. Seconds, minutes go by. Nothing, of course. I just laughed and walked back inside. I put my laptop back in my bag and made my way upstairs to the guest room. I opened the door just to check on the little man, making sure that he was fast asleep. I walked in the bathroom to brush my teeth, and then something hit the bathroom window. It made me jump. I quickly ran to the bathroom window and looked out to the barely lighted backyard. Odd, I thought. It must have been a bat or an insect or something. I finished in the bathroom and walked to the guest bedroom. I got nice and comfortable in the bed. Smack! Something hit the window of the guest bedroom. Okay, what the heck? I got out of bed and peered out into the dimly lit street. Probably some kids were playing a prank on me, so I thought. But my eyes caught something in the distance. Something standing just in the dark. Something tall. Oh, probably some dumb kids. That's a really good costume though, I thought. But it just stood there. Then it started to walk, partially into the light. It had these really long legs and these really long arms. Whoa, what the hell? I thought to myself, this has to be a costume. I thought inside of me, I didn't really want it to be a costume. No way am I seeing this. No way am I seeing this. This thing just stood there in the light staring at me. I could see it almost motioning to me. I said to myself in my head, go away, go away. But something came over me. I can't explain it. but it was not my thoughts at all. Come to me. I kept hearing this voice inside my head. Come to me. It got louder and louder in my head. I just shook my head. I shook my head and prayed. I prayed to God. And then it was gone. Whatever this thing was, it was gone. I know a lot of people are going to say that it was nothing more than a costume. Or maybe I was sleepwalking or something, or having a bad dream. But no, it was real. Don't mess with these things. It doesn't take too much to come up with a story, and maybe that's what a lot of people do. They fabricate stories to become famous or something. That's not what I want to do here. In fact, please keep me anonymous on your channel. I have way too much pride to be writing this, but I'm going to. It was around this time last year. I am an avid backpacker. I typically travel alone. On occasions, I will travel with my friend. But tracking trails on your own is the most peaceful thing that I can think of. Now, before all this, I didn't even know about the paranormal. I really didn't even care. I still don't. But this encounter has changed my view. Just a little. I was in a location in Vancouver. Anyone who is a hiker or backpacker, I would highly recommend this area. I started my trail early in the AM or so. I think I was around 7 or so. I was, well, what appeared to be the only one on the trail, which is fine by me. Now, I'm not stupid. I always carry enough stuff just in case I get lost, and spending time in the army has definitely helped me in these many situations. The worst so far is weather-related. I was making my way to the trails just taking in the beautiful scenery. I was also taking the sounds of the birds, just the smells of nature. I started to hear what sounded like someone hitting a stick against a tree. I mean, it's an obvious noise at that. But it dawned on me, why the hell would anybody be doing this? And the noise got louder the more I tracked with it deeper. I could almost make out a pattern. 3, pause, 3, pause, 2, pause, and 4. And this continued on for several minutes. It was definitely a pattern. So I grabbed a stick and started to hit a tree. Honestly, I don't know why I did this. My thoughts were not paranormal, but that of maybe a lost hiker or something. And the pattern seemed to answer back. Hello? Are you hurt? Do you need help? I yelled. But that's when this ungodly roar came out of nowhere. It sounded so deep and big. People, I know wolves, and I know bears. This thing sounded so much bigger. It kind of sounded like an ape. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but I've seen videos on YouTube. I really thought someone was messing with me. Then, out of nowhere, a good-sized rock, and I mean a good-sized rock, something a normal bodybuilder would have trouble picking up, came flying right at me. Hey! I yelled. Then, maybe about 20 yards or so, I saw something in the tree line. It was large. It was really large. And I could only make out what it looked like. Almost like a gigantic gorilla. No, I was no believer in the paranormal at the time, but of course, all hikers share their stories with this so-called Bigfoot. And that's what ran through my head. I thought to myself, am I really seeing this? I started to push back. Something told me to run. And that's what I did. Sorry for the short story, but that's where it ended, people. And luckily, it didn't end any other way. Because I don't think I'd be telling this story. I do heed warning about some of these places. Obviously, these things are territorial. I call these things. I don't even know what I saw, and I'm not even saying it was a Bigfoot. But if it was, heed warning in some of these woods, and just be careful. Okay, I have heard many stories, and I follow a lot of subs on YouTube, hoping that someone would have an answer to this and what I saw that day, but no one can come up with anything, or they just laugh it off. I was around 13 or 14, I can't remember. My dad and I would go fishing a lot. It was such an awesome thing for us to do together. Although my dad has passed, I still hold those memories fondly. I do wish he was here to share his side of the story. It was early in the morning. We had this nice water hole we would fish in. Good water with good eats, as we would catch at least two or three to each to make for dinner. We had cast it out and just sat there and took in the summer sun, talking about football and other things. My dad set his pole down to go grab some beer and some bait. As his pole was sitting there, out of nowhere, it got started getting pulled on, almost nearly into the water. "Dad!" I yelled. Just as I yelled, that man jumped so fast and grabbed his pole before it sunk. He started pulling it back and got a hold of it. "Hoo boy!" As my dad would always say, "It's a big one." But this thing fought hard. Now, we have some good sized fish, but nothing that strong. I could see in my dad's face that he was struggling hard, holding the pole. Then, snap! The pole just broke in half, and my dad let it go. Well, my dad doesn't scare easily, but I could see it in his face. Something freaked him out. "Dad, what the heck kind of fish was that?" "I don't know, kid." But he just stood there and shook it off, laughed, and went to grab his other pole. That's when I saw it. This fishman thing. It just popped its head out of the water, maybe 20 feet away from me. It had hands, but they were all scaly. At first, I thought it was a costume or something, but then it blinked. It turned its head back and forth out of curiosity. Then out of nowhere, his hands rose up, and he had my dad's pole. And he kind of gave a "don't do that again" kind of look to me, and threw the pole. I started to scream, and my dad came running. Now, this is typically where the part of the story where the parent doesn't see anything and they call you crazy. But it just stood there, floating, staring at both of us, what felt like minutes. My dad grabbed my shirt and started pulling me back as this thing started coming close to us. We jumped in the truck, and then I saw her walk out of the water. Now, I don't know if anybody has seen that movie, The Creature of the Black Lagoon, but man, this thing looked just like it. Okay, maybe it was a costume, but man, that's a good costume. And for that time frame, back in the 60s, that had been really expensive to make. Maybe I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but has anybody had any encounters with something like this? The so-called fishman. This happened to me when I was around 8. I remember that day so vividly. Now, I know when you're a little kid, things seem so much bigger. But what if that thing was what it was? It was a warm summer day. I was outside playing by myself. No clouds in the sky at all. You know when a bird or a plane flies past the sun and it creates a shadow? Well, I saw this shadow fly over me. I didn't look up. I just remember seeing that thing, went back to playing, and pretended it was a dragon or something. I remember seeing it fly over again. The curious mind in me looked up and came to see what I was actually looking at. It was a giant bird. I remember thinking to myself, this thing could pick me up. It was all black with some white around its neck. I know to this day the wingspan had to be somewhere around 15 to 18 feet because when I saw it fly over me, it passed two trees in the air that my mom would hang clothes from. that was about 20 feet long. As I watched the thing circle, I saw it attempt to land on a tree in the front yard, but the limb barely gave in. All of a sudden, my mom came out and screamed for me to get in the house. It hadn't dawned on me that there was a second bird. This one was much larger than the other one. I ran from my back porch and ran inside. We both watched these things circle around for a few minutes. My mom called to my dad and he came running downstairs. He was a biologist who worked at several zoos. He was shocked. I remember him saying something along the lines of, "What the heck kind of bird is those?" Years later, this came up in conversation with my mom and my dad. I was shocked to hear my dad tell me that days after, he had done some research, and the only plausible explanation was that those birds were uncharted species, or something, and that the only bird that came close to those size were the extinct teratorns. P.S. After watching your video about the Thunderbird, I wonder if that's what I saw. I know this story is going to be hard to believe. I have a hard time believing it myself. This happened to me several years ago. I am retired military. I just love getting away and typically spend a few weeks up in Alaska with a hunting buddy and a few fishing friends. We had chartered a boat to take us to a well-known fishing location. It was around noon, and we started fishing. But hours went by and never catching anything. This was odd given the location. I had fished it there several times before and caught several fish, and good catches. I then noticed off the starboard side of the boat something moving in and out of the water. At first, I thought it was a whale or something, a killer whale because it was all black. But then we all noticed how long this thing was. Any time it would surface, we would estimate it to be somewhere around 30 to 40 feet in length, far bigger than that of a whale. And I am no expert, but killer whales are not known for this area. It was so big that it started rocking the boat. The fisherman, the owner of the boat, looked absolutely shocked. When I asked him about it, he just shook his head and said he had no idea what it was. That's when, several minutes later, we saw this thing surface again, but this time, we got a good look at it. It had a long neck, and looked just like one of those, well, the plesiosaurs, or one of those Loch Ness monsters. I know this is hard to believe, but this is what we saw. A lot of the villagers spoke about this creature, and we always joked about it. But I finally saw it. I swear that there are still creatures that we don't know about in these oceans. As someone who charters a lot of these, I'm telling you, they exist. Well, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed those stories, as I loved reading about them. Cryptos, or monsters, whatever you want to call them, they are one of my favorite subjects to read about because they're so real. Some of these creatures, we don't have evidence to support that they exist, but we don't have evidence to support that they don't. Guys, for my next video, I would like to do another paranormal video, so if you have some ghost stories, share them here with me. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down at the bottom. Happy hauntings.